Do you have any experiences from your childhood that at the time might have seemed funny or wild, but now, with the benefit of hindsight and adult perspective, are in actuality deeply disturbing and horrifying? Well, I have a story like that I'd like to share with you. But before I jump in here, consider this a pretty stark content warning. This story deals with a whole mess of not safe for life subject matter, so if you're squeamish or easily spooked, it's probably best to click off now. Okay, so in the mid-2000s, I was an 11-year-old kid in suburban New Jersey who just got his first brick of an LG flip phone and concurrently his first little taste of adolescent independence. And as we all know, adolescent independence and adolescent mischief pair better than Fruity Pebbles and Saturday morning cartoons. So one day, I was getting off the bus with my friend who lived down the street from me. Let's call him Eric. If I recall correctly, we had made plans to hang out for a while after school and play Grand Theft Auto at his place, so I was headed over there with the expectation of popping in the flying car cheat code and driving a tacky sports car off the roof of a Vice City hotel building or whatever. But before we got to his front door, he stopped me on the porch and made sure his parents and siblings weren't outside to hear what he was about to say. He leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Do you want to call the Now 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 girl?" I had never heard of the Now 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 girl, but just based off the mad glint in his eye, I was definitely intrigued and wanted to know more. "Who's the Now 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 girl?" I asked. He told me, "I got her number the other day. Basically, you call her up and she's like a totally normal teenager. But as soon as you say the words, now, 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 she turns into a little kid and does whatever you tell her to do." Now, as an adult, if my friend asked me to call someone with a pretty obvious and tragic mental illness just to mess with them, I'd tell them no, and also to get the fuck out of my apartment. But as a kid, I was like, hell yeah, dude, that honestly sounds better than GTA even. So obviously, since we were 11 and using cell phones that look like this, we didn't think or even know how to record the phone conversation that ensued. But I figured for our purposes in this video, it might help you understand what it felt like to have a conversation with the so-called Now 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 girl to make something of a reenactment. So more or less, here's how it went.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Who is this?
It's Eric and Nick,
Okay.
and we got your number somewhere. And they told us that if we say,
What?
they told us if we say this thing, like, these words, then
What is this? What thing?
it's the thing that people say on the phone, like, to you. And then I guess you'll, like, turn into...
Okay, well, I don't know who you are or what you're talking about, so please do not call me again.
Now.
Hello?
Hey, who is this?
Who are you?
So it's Eric and Nick, and we just want to, like,
Okay, let me stop this here. As I said earlier, we were 11, so fortunately for her, we didn't think to push the whole she'll do anything you ask her to do thing to its logical conclusion. But as I'm sure you can imagine, there were plenty of kids just a couple years older than us that were more than willing to test the waters. And as I would come to find out in the weeks and months following, that's exactly what happened. The Now 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 girl's phone number spread like wildfire throughout my town's middle and high schools. Obviously, I wasn't there for every phone conversation that took place, but I heard enough to know, even as an 11-year-old kid, that something very wrong was happening here. I'm not going to detail the worst of what I heard about, but think of it this way. A growing group of mid-2000s middle and high schoolers had access to a phone number that allowed them to ask a girl for literally any type of lewd picture they could possibly dream up, and she would send it to them, without question, every single time. So yeah, it got really bad for a while there. After the first day I called with Eric, I may have told some of my other friends about her, and we called a few times just so I could prove to them that she was real. But after that, I stopped calling. And eventually, I stopped hearing about her through the grapevine at school, so I had to assume everyone else did too after a while. As the years went on, like most things you experience in 5th grade, the Now 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 girl sort of faded from my memory. But now, almost 20 years later, a conversation with some friends about our craziest childhood experiences brought her back to the forefront of my mind. As I recounted the experience to them, it almost felt like I was telling them a story from someone else's life. Coming out of my mouth, it all sounded like the plot of a horror movie rather than something I actually experienced. So, have to prove to myself that she actually existed, I started doing some research online to find out more about who she might have been. But unfortunately, there's not much information about her online. After 20 minutes or so, I was about to give up when I finally found a link to an extremely obscure old internet forum that had a posting about her. And that's where this story took a very dark turn. The Now 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 girl is a girl who lives in Monmouth County in New Jersey who supposedly suffers from dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities. Some people believe that this is because her father settled her as a child. He used to say now 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 to make her get sex with him. The number was found on a park bench in Society Hill, which is a large neighborhood in Mahwah, New Jersey, and now all of the Mahwah public school students over 10 knows about it and pretty much abuses her. I had totally forgotten about this tragic and deeply unsettling aspect to the story, but once I read it, the memory of childhood friends telling me the story about her father and her mental illness came rushing back to me. For those of you who don't know, DID, or dissociative identity disorder, is what we used to refer to as multiple personality disorder. Generally, those suffering from this illness create one or more discrete personalities as a response to severe trauma they've experienced. These new personalities are referred to as alters. Each alter has distinct characteristics such as temperament, interests, age, and even gender and ethnicity in some cases. In pop culture, DID has been depicted in multiple films and TV shows, most notably M. Night Shyamalan's Split and Daniel Petrie's Sybil. Of course, people with DID aren't bulletproof and definitely can't defy the laws of physics like James McAvoy apparently can, but they can switch personalities when faced with specific triggers. Now, I have to admit that for a long time, I wasn't really sure whether or not the Now 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 girl was actually someone suffering from a mental illness or just some weird lady who found it entertaining to become the center of a suburban legend by messing with a bunch of middle and high schoolers. But after reading that passage and doing some research on DID, it kinda all seems to fit. However, I'm definitely not a psychiatrist, so far be it for me to diagnose someone with a rare and controversial mental illness after only having a handful of phone conversations with her 20 years ago, but the connections between this person and this illness are undeniably hard to ignore. After searching YouTube for some DID deep dives, I found an interview with a woman suffering from DID whose backstory, demeanor, and alters were eerily reminiscent of the Now 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 girl.
And you total have 11 alters, 5 of which are primary, but one used to come out every day. Let's start with her.
Okay, so she is, her name is Minnie, and she's a 3-year-old girl.
Do you want to talk about what happened in your childhood that caused you to develop DID?
So it was a sexual abuse thing, and it did happen with my father, along with like some of his friends. Hi.
Hi. You're Minnie?
Yeah. I'm Minnie. I'm free. And
I know this is a big word, okay? But do you know what dissociative identity disorder is?
That's what my mommy said that we have.
Yeah. But do you know what it is?
It just makes lots of people be friends.
This woman did not have a trigger phrase for alter switching like the Now 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 girl had, but she did have a history full of unspeakable trauma and, most importantly, the alternate personality of a 3-year-old girl living alongside her own consciousness. Now that I had a better understanding of the disorder at the center of the suburban legend, my next logical step was to get a better understanding of the person, the Now 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 girl herself. How did her number get out? How many people were calling her at the height of this? And most importantly, was she okay? Was she still getting harassed by hordes of teenagers? And was she getting the treatment she needed? There are a bunch of people in my personal life who knew about her, but I wanted to see if I could widen the scope a bit, partially to see how far-reaching this story actually was, and partially to see if people from other parts of New Jersey had a better idea of what might have happened to her. And that's when I found Joe.
My name is Joe. I grew up in northern New Jersey, in Bergen County, Oakland specifically.
How did you first hear about the Now 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 girl?
So I walked into homeroom one day when I was back in 6th grade in my first period in science class, and written on the whiteboard in front of the room, it said, call this number, the Now 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 girl, and it just had her number listed, and that was quite literally it. And from that day forward, her number spread around the school like wildfire.
So it wasn't just your friends, it was like people that everyone was calling her for that span of time.
even people from different friend groups that I wasn't in have remember speaking to her.
So what was your experience like personally speaking with her?
I mean, I think I called a decent amount of times when I was younger. I found it interesting. You know, me and my friends weren't quite sure if we believed it or not at the time, so we would just call and talk to her, get her to switch over, because when you would say now to her, her personality would switch. She would go from which sounded like, an older lady woman, and when you'd say the words now, her voice would immediately drop, and she sounded like she was a little kid, a lot more timid, a lot more quiet, and we would just call a lot, trying to talk to her, trying to figure out what was going on exactly. And that's with us. I know other people really took advantage of the situation with her, because she would do just about anything when she was in that switched state.
Do you have any background information about who she might have been?
And I mean, it was so long ago. I'm sure I got her name, talking to her back in the day, but I can't remember for the life of me. The only thing I remember is that she would tell us the reason why the words now did something to her is just because she was used to get abused as a child. Her father would say, "Come out here now." And that's really the only bit of information she ever gave us about herself.
So, and did she give you that information while she was in, like, her normal adult state of mind, or was that when she said that?
No, that was after she made the switch to sound like the younger version of her. When she would speak normally, she was very persistent that she does not know who you are. She has not spoken to you ever before. And she would always claim that her phone is broken as well, which is part, because we would tell her to look back. She'd be like, "Hey, we spoke to you an hour ago. Go look back at your phone, and you can see that we spoke." And she's like, "My screen is broken. I can't do it." She was just very against everything when she was her normal self.
Just one more question. Looking back at this situation with an adult perspective, what do you think was actually going on with her? Like, do you think the story about the abuse was true, or do you think this was just some weird woman running like a crazy prank on a bunch of like high schoolers and middle schoolers?
Looking back now, I think I might even be more confused than I was when I was a kid, because that would be one heck of a prank, man, to pull on a bunch of random kids for absolutely no reason. There was, again, a lot of people that spoke to her, so she would have to be doing it every single day, almost every second of every day.
Yeah.
And like I just said, when she was in that little state, you can have her do anything, text you, send you pictures, whatever. And but when she was normal, she would claim her phone's broken. And when she's in that other state, she would happily do whatever you asked her to do, So back, man, it's just very confusing to me, because I don't know many people that would put up with that, like the way she put up with that. But I think the story that she would say about the abuse sounds plausible, especially with the effects that the words have on her.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, likewise, man.
Speaking to Joe confirmed a few things for me. First of all, I now knew for a certainty that the Now girl was a suburban legend that spanned a lot of ground geographically. If there were dozens of students calling this girl from the middle and high schools of my town, Joe's town, and potentially even more, she must have been receiving multiple calls every hour of every day for a while. And according to the old forum post I found, the Now girl lived in Monmouth County, which is central Jersey. Yet the number was found on a park bench in Mahwah, which is much closer to where Joe and I grew up in the northern region of the state. After talking to Joe, I decided to comb through Reddit one last time to see if I can get any more information. And as far as I can tell, there's only one post about the Now girl on the entire site. Fittingly, it was on Our New Jersey. The OP details his experiences speaking with the Now girl back in the mid-2000s and offers much of the same information that I've provided throughout the bulk of this video, and most of the commenters hadn't even heard of the story. But there was one commenter who offered some pretty disturbing context that I was unaware of. She called me and my friend for over 4 years. All of this tracks with our experience too, but we were the ones that would have to wake her up when someone put her in a trance. We would get maybe anywhere from 3 to 50 calls from her a night, depending on the day of the week, and we'd talk to her when she was quote-unquote awake. It would be pretty scary actually at 3 a.m. getting phone calls from her in that state of childlike talking and sleepiness over and over and over. But I think we even became friends on Facebook at one point and felt like we needed to keep answering and waking her up because a bunch of other people were being fucked up and taking advantage of her. Learning that this poor girl would become paralyzed in her childlike altar if her prank caller didn't have the decency or awareness to switch her back before hanging up was heartbreaking. In fact, the deeper that I dug into this story, the more heartbreaking everything about it became. When I set out to make this video, I understood this story was disturbing and tragic, but the full scale of the psychological torture this girl endured at the same time I was busy being a largely oblivious and unbothered preteen became harder and harder to stomach. At this point, I felt like I had the most information I could hope to glean about the Now girl's past, so I set out to find out whatever I could about her present, while, of course, keeping sensitive, personally identifying information far, far away from this video script. As I mentioned before, the forum post said her number was found on a park bench in Mahwah, which isn't very far from where I grew up. So I decided to take a drive there and do some good old-fashioned investigative journalism. I went into every bar, business, and restaurant I could find to gently harass the staff and customers about information concerning this 2-decade-old story. And as you can imagine, that didn't go as well for me as I hoped it would. No one had ever heard of her. I posted on every Mahwah-centric Facebook group I could find, and again, no dice. Then I tried the Monmouth County-centric Facebook groups and had similarly shitty luck getting responses. I made a few Reddit posts and even threw a Hail Mary on the Craigslist personals. And I got nothing. But before I decided to pack it in and just finish the video with the information I already gathered, I figured it would be smart to at least make one posting on my personal Facebook page. After all, the majority of my friends list was comprised of New Jerseyans who were around my age range. And shockingly, this was the avenue where I received the most disturbing information since I started my research for this story. On the lighter side of things, there were a few familiar faces from high school that reached out with their own scarcely remembered childhood memories of calling her. Some people offered new angles to the story that I was previously unaware of, like how people used to use the once popular video chat site Uvu to contact her, which was interesting to me, at least from a chronological perspective, because I contacted her back in 2004 and Uvu didn't launch until 2007, which means she was having these kinds of conversations with people for at least 3 years. And worse, she was having them on camera. But by far, the most sickening piece of information I've received throughout this entire process came from someone I vaguely knew in middle and high school. He left a short comment on my Facebook status, but didn't really elaborate until I reached out to him on Messenger. Hey man, I heard a recording where someone was like, throw yourself down the stairs, and then a bunch of banging and silence till they hung up. Full disclosure, I spoke to this guy afterward, and he was just as disgusted as I was with this story. He preferred to remain anonymous, but I thought it best to let any viewers of this video know that he wasn't involved with that potentially criminal and definitely morally abhorrent prank call in any way. He just heard about it through the grapevine. And there's one last story that I'm not going to go into too much detail about here just because it's so fucked up and wrong on every single level, but basically, he knew someone who met this girl in person and used her condition to... yeah. Truly unconscionable shit. So again, when I set out to make this video, I really had no idea how deep and dark the rabbit hole really was. And what's more, I truly don't know if there's any real way of knowing how much further it could go simply because of the lack of information about this person and the fact that it all took place 20 years ago in a single region of suburban New Jersey. I wanted to make an interesting video about a suburban legend I had firsthand experience with that not many people know about, but nearing the end here, it kind of feels like I made a deeply tragic video about a girl who was forced to relive her past trauma, get taken advantage of by potentially hundreds of kids who didn't know any better, alongside a handful of teenagers who definitely should have, and ultimately endure what seems to me to be a statewide cyberbullying campaign. But if there's one silver lining here, a friend of mine reached out to me not too long after I made that Facebook status about the Now girl and sent me her phone number that she still had saved somehow after all these years. And to my great relief, when I called the number,
"We're sorry,"
I found out immediately that it was taken out of service. So this last section of the video is directed at you, the person myself, my friends, and a bunch of other snot-nosed dipshits used to refer to as the now girl. I know I did a whole bunch of research, posting, and even in-person investigative work to try to figure out where you might be now or how you might be doing, but ultimately, I feel like it's much better that this story stay what it always should have been for you. A tragic teenage footnote in your otherwise happy and productive life. Anyways, thanks to everyone who made it this far. This isn't usually the type of content I do on this channel, but I think it's something I'd be very interested in doing more of if people enjoyed it. So comment below any lesser known suburban legends you or your friends might have experienced firsthand, and maybe I'll talk about that next time. Like and subscribe for more, and have a good one, everybody.